All right, it's recording. What day is it?
Okay.
The 20th? July
20th, 2017.
Okay. So, and we're telling the story of, I don't know, what would you call it? The Plainview, Texas bail bond story?
Yeah, or the Plainview, Texas bail bond apprehension story. Sounds more exciting that way.
Alright, so I'm just going to ask you a question, then you could just say whatever you want. So just start with how you got into bail bonds.
Well, I got into bail bonds because back in 1987 or 1988, Jack, your Uncle Jack there, was studying to become a bail bondsman, and we lived in apartments right next to each other. And to help him study for his test, he used me. And we did that for, I don't know, maybe a couple months, definitely a month, but a long time, practically every night. And I'd ask him questions and stuff, and by the time he got to where he was ready to take the bail bonding tests, there's more than one, I could have passed it, which I thought was kind of funny, because I was just helping him study. And then in the following years, say early 90s, he had been in bonding maybe 5 years. He asked me a few times, several times, to be a posting agent, and kind of the irony is, I was painting houses and things like that, and the irony is I told him he was crazy. I said, "Oh, I think you're crazy for even being a bail bondsman," and that's the truth. And so for a long time, I just, I didn't make fun or anything. I really respected it that he did it, but I told him there was no way. I wasn't cut out for it. There was no way I was going to do it. But by the mid-90s, 96, in there, you start needing money, and you start seeing that you can make some extra money and stuff like that. So originally I signed on to work in the office and be a posting agent, meaning they say, here's the paperwork, go have them fill this out, go post the bond, and that's all you do. And you get a commission based on the size of the bond, and you don't have any liability. Except that the federal laws, which govern bail bonding through the insurance commissions, they don't carry your arrangement with whoever you work for, whatever bondsman you work for. They don't care. If you write the bond, legally you are responsible. So being a posting agent quickly turned into, well, just come along on this. We got to go arrest this guy, and we need another body. And then it was, hey, one of your bonds went bad. We know where the guy is. We're going to go get him, but we need you there because you're the one that wrote the bond. Okay. Or we need an extension. We need some more time. We can't find him. I need you to go to court because you wrote the bond, and go to the judge and request more time, and here's what we've done. We'll need you to tell him this and that. And so slowly you become entwined in it and entangled, and pretty soon you're full-fledged, and there's no such thing as just being a posting agent. I was pretty good at it too, and that just led me to be fully entrenched in it. Took me a long time to escape from it too.
And the whole time you're still painting houses and stuff?
Still painting houses too, doing both, and that which was very difficult. And all joking, I mean, it's sort of funny, but I really do attribute the fact that I ended up with a pacemaker, with all the stress I was under for about 10 years there. 7 to 8 years of it doing both. Took me a whole year just to get out of bail bonds because you legally cannot abandon a bail bond. So from the time I quit writing bonds, it was nearly a year until the last one ran its course. And then I could actually get away from it. I just couldn't take it anymore after a while. That was in 2003. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah. So, so then how did you end up in Fort Morgan then?
The way that worked was they were expanding to Breckenridge from Fairplay is where, well, first, I actually better back up. There was Mountain Jack bail bonds, which is, or Action Jackson bail bonds in Lakewood and / Denver, which is where it all started. And then Jack wanted to get into the mountains, so they moved to Fairplay, let John run the Denver office. And they moved to Fairplay and started another bail bonding company called Mountain Jack, which is still around. And then from there, they opened an office in Breckenridge and then Grand Junction. So they've got the hub in the Denver metro corridor area covered. They got the mountains covered. And then he started talking about out east. And if I was willing to start it from scratch, then I could make a higher percentage and I could have my own buff, which is called a build-up fund. So that's something you pay 1% of every bond into that, and that gives you a cushion if something goes bad or you need something to operate from. So I went from being an employee, always an employee really, but more like a subcontractor, and having been in Fort Morgan and knowing it like the back of my hand, I went to high school there and all that stuff, and having family live up there, it seemed, and I don't know much about southern or southeast Colorado. I've been there a bunch, but don't know anybody. Fort Morgan was the logical place, and it was perfectly located too. So that's, and then you can paint anywhere. And already knowing people from Fort Morgan, it made it pretty easy to move back there, renew some old friendships, start a bail bonding company with Jack's backing, and just shift painting to there. So I immediately started advertising for painting, letting people I knew that were friends that would pass the word, and I stepped right into the bail bonding mess in Fort Morgan. There's too many bail bondsmen there. There's 8 of them in that little town, whereas there's 10 to 12,000 people in the area, so it's not tiny. But a couple of bail bondsmen could handle it just fine. That's sort of a secondary issue, but that's how it came about to go to Fort Morgan. The bad thing was, I still had access to Denver and those resources, you're still 85 to 100 miles away. So you're a lone ranger, and whereas the other guys, until I met RP, the other guys are from Fort Morgan really, and they've got employees and stuff, and I was up there by myself.
Well,
I didn't really care though.
We answer the phone sometimes. I know that a few times.
Yeah. Well, that'd get transferred around, so people could get a break, and I'd get a few extra bucks for answering the phone, and you really don't mind answering the phone, because if you get a real good paying bond, frankly, I didn't mind. I'll drive the hour to Denver and post it myself, And they let me have pretty much all of the Adams County, which is Brighton, and then Greeley, which is Weld County, everything east, and even a lot of times Fort Collins, I would go there because whoever was posting down in Denver and stuff would just be too busy or just didn't want to drive the hour and something to Fort Collins, where I could almost get there almost as fast as they could from Fort Morgan. So I covered a pretty wide area. But I was kind of used to that from when I towed cars for Avis Rent-A-Car and covered parts of 5 states back in the 80s. So it's kind of funny how things you do can benefit you later on. You don't even realize.
Yeah. So then so how did it all start? The guy getting arrested, the whole Plainview.
Well, the Plainview deal, I don't remember his name anymore. But a Mexican guy, I'm sure he was here from Mexico. Don't remember his name anymore, but he had, I think, a second DUI, maybe more. I don't think it was more than a second because his bond was $2,500, and usually it's higher if you're on your third or something. But anyway, he was wanted for a DUI. And I went and posted his bond, and I let his girlfriend slash fiance co-sign for him. And I did it just with her backing it up because she was from Fort Morgan, native. And she also was the nurse at the beef plant, the beef meatpacking plant in Fort Morgan, which is called, at the time, I think it's Cargill now, but it was called Excel Beef at the time. This was in 97, fall of 97, I believe. And so, of course, they always go to the first couple court hearings. It's always the last one you got to worry about when they're going to get sentenced and stuff. And so he takes off, and I get the warrant in the mail, and I go through the regular procedures to locate him. And the first one is to call the co-signer, which was his girlfriend, who, of course, was in tears and upset because he took off. And you don't know at the beginning if she's really telling you the truth or not. And it's sort of irrelevant. But helps that she is telling you the truth. And then you got to decide how much pressure you're going to put her under, because she'll be responsible for the $2,500 if you can't catch it. The thing about us is a lot of bondsmen, if they have a solid cosigner, which she was because she had a solid job. I mean, her job was not one that's easy to come by. So I let her sign because she's not likely to sacrifice a really good job for something like this, even over $2,500. But the way we are, a lot of bondsmen will just say, too bad, you pay the bond, and they won't even look for the guy. But the way we are is we really care, and put it in the present tense. It's been 20 years ago, but we'd hunt them. You know, we're personally offended. Plus, you have courts like it. It builds your stature with the court and with the judges, and they start remembering the bondsmen that bring their people in and the ones that just, write them off. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, so I started the procedures to find the guy, and I believe that she really didn't know, or she was afraid of him. And I didn't want to start off by really stressing her out and somehow making her, I needed her cooperative for a while. You make them give, I have other references and other people, and, you can start making calls and get a feel for where this whole thing is. And so it took a while, probably at least, 180 days, so 3 months would have been the minimum. I couldn't find him. And then I got an extension through the Morgan County judge, which incidentally at that time I hadn't been up there even a year or maybe a year. And so I wasn't established with the judges like we were down in Denver. So I really needed to find this guy because I wasn't going to get much extra time and I was going to have to pay the bond. So probably about 6 months later, I still haven't located the guy. And I'm putting a little more pressure on the co-signer, feeling bad for her, but telling her I don't have any choice, and you're going to end up paying this because unfortunately I'm not. And, I made it clear, I always do, when you co-sign the bond. And then the strange twist was so we're like maybe 6 months later, and I get the notice that the judge has denied any additional time. So pretty soon, I don't remember, but probably in another 30 days, I'm going to have to pay this bond. And you can still look for them, and you can petition to get your money back, but you still have to fork out the money to the court. And anyway, so of all things, I go to the jail to post a different bond, totally unrelated to this. And like I say, I've been trying to find him for 6 months, and I have no idea where he's at. And I'm sitting in the waiting room waiting to write this other bond, and there are 2 people sitting there waiting for somebody to come out the door who's already been bonded by one of the other bondsmen. And they're just having small talk. And one of them says to the other one, "Oh, no, he doesn't work at Excel anymore. He's working over at the plant in Sterling, Colorado." And it never had occurred to me that there was more than one Excel beef plant. It should have, but it didn't. So I write my bond, and we didn't have the computer access like you do now. There were computers, but, nothing. You know what it was like in 97.
Yeah, can you go back on that? Like, you said the steps. Yeah, so first you ask the co-signer. What do you do after that? If the
well,
co-signer?
You don't just get that. They have to fill out an info sheet. You get references. You get relatives. You get their high school. You get previous job employment.
How do you do that? How would you have done that? Like
so what you do is
Google?
you pull out their file and you look for common denominators, and you start making calls. And you ask questions like lawyers do that you already know the answer to, just to see what they're going to tell you. So you can try to figure out who's lying to you and who's telling you the truth, because it's usually the ones who are lying to you that know where he's at. And it depends on how much pressure you want to put. Until they tell you to quit, you can show up at their job. You can make them just sick of getting phone calls. You can talk to relatives of the co-signer who will tell you things like, "I told her not to do it. I told her she was going to regret it." And then you say, "Well, unfortunately, Mom, she's going to end up paying this. I mean, even the littlest thing, what do you remember about the guy? Are there any friends I don't know about?" And you just start gathering info. And sometimes you sit down and you spread it out on a table and you look at all of it in front of you. And it didn't occur to me, he went to high school in Plainview, Texas, or some kind of schooling or training. Maybe it wasn't high school, because I know he was from Mexico. But he had connections there. But, I think I probably thought he could be there, but he could be anywhere. And a lot of times they won't go back to places like that because they figure if you are going to look for him, that's where you're going to go, which is true. The other thing is 2,500 is still relatively small, so you get far enough away, they start feeling like it'll cost him more to come and get me. So they start feeling safe. But that's what you do, and you keep regular communication. What do you know? Do you know anything? And hey, it's just stuff like that. And it takes a while to. You don't want to call too many people too fast. So you make notes, and some of the ones you really think could help you, you don't want to call them right away. I mean, it can be pretty fun if you didn't have money on the line and all that stuff. It's mainly, my style was to outsmart. And so that's kind of what you do, is you're just gathering info and looking for common denominators. What does he do for a living? And this goes back to that. When I got back home, then I did some research, and I found that not only was there an Excel in Fort Morgan, there was a bigger one in Sterling. There's one, I believe, down in Lamar, Colorado, or La Junta, east of Pueblo. And then I started finding there's one in Nebraska. And then I'm reading about XL beef. And guess where the largest one in the United States is in Plainview, Texas. Over 4,000 or 5,000 employees. I mean, the thing is huge. Well, I pull the file out, I look at it, and there's Plainview here, there's Plainview there, there's a connection to Plainview here, there's one over there, and all your info that you've gathered. Well, that's what he does. He works for a meat plant. He could transfer no problem. He'd still be employed. And I thought, that's where he is. He's in Texas. So, without telling her how I came upon that, I call the co-signer and I say, okay, Mary, whatever her name was, I think it really was Mary. All right, Mary, so I'm pretty sure I know where he is. He's in Texas. And she'll go, yeah? And then I said, yeah, and I know exactly where in Texas. And I got to be honest with you, Mary, I don't think you've been being straight with me. And then I turned to bad cop. Oh, no, I have, that whole deal. And I said, well, here's the deal. I know. There's a lot, and you don't even know if what I'm about to say is true. It's another tactic. You say, because the guy's not the cream of the crop of people, right? You say, well, it turns out there's a lot of people that really don't like him. And then you wait to see if she goes, yeah, well, then you know that you have no idea. That was a bluff. But now you know there are people that don't like him. But it's sort of neither here nor there, and I tell her I know where he is. All I need is to verify it, because the court's going to want this money, and then we're going to end up garnishing your wages. And being the nurse at the meat packing plant and having to go through personnel, goes without saying how embarrassing that's going to be. And believe me, it'll be out of my hands, or whatever I said, that sort of thing. So I put pressure on her, and I said, here's what I need you to do, and you're going to trust me. You are going to trust me. You're the nurse, so you have access to personnel files, and I know you do. So I need you to do whatever it takes. Whether and I'm giving her suggestions like some piece of unfinished business before he left Fort Morgan, you're trying to close out a file, you're missing a piece of info, whatever it takes. But you need to find out if he's working at the plant in Plainview, Texas, and I need to know now. And that's how I dealt with her. And the very next day, I think, very soon, and I assured her, I said, I could have done nothing, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I assure you, nobody will ever know. All I want is him and to not have to pay this bond. You're not my problem. Nobody's going to ask me, but I will cover you. Nobody will ever know where I got the verification. You're just going to have to believe me. So So she did that, and I told her, I don't even care how you do it, just do it. And so she called me and she said, yes, he is working there. And I said, do you know what shifts? And she said, no, and I can't. If I try to find that out, it's going to tip him off. And I said, yeah, I get it. And so at that point, I knew for sure he was there. But I told her, I don't know, even though I knew I was going right away, I told her, I don't know when I'm going to get time to go, blah, blah, blah. But be ready because I may need your help again. I'll try not to, but I might. And, I'll try to keep it to a bare minimum. And then I know that because you do this all the time. And then I said, oh, and one more thing. If you tip him off, I'm not going to care about you anymore. So this is between us. And, I'm a nice guy, but you know what I mean. And she said, no, I won't. So then I had to start planning. Well, the next thing is in Texas, it's not the only state like this. Illinois, Nebraska even. They have state laws that make it real tough. But in Texas, it can go county to county, and you have to be careful because you can actually get charged with kidnapping even if everything's legit, which of course it is. If you're in the wrong county and they don't allow anyone from outside the state to arrest somebody, they'll take your fugitive, they'll hold on to him because he has a warrant, but they'll arrest you and charge you with kidnapping. So I had to do some research to find out what, and it turned out to be Hale County, H-A-L-E, Hale County, Texas, and find out what the laws were in Hale County. And, of course, it turned out that in Hale County, that's one of the counties that you're not allowed to apprehend somebody, and you can get charged with kidnapping. The federal law says, so it supersedes all laws, I believe all bail bonding laws are federal laws. It says that if you are prevented by a law enforcement agency or a court or an officer of a court from apprehending your fugitive in their jurisdiction, you must be removed from the bond or relieved from liability of the bond. There's no ifs. They have to. So the problem is you can't go to the Colorado judge and say, hey, I know where he is, but he's in a county where I can't take him because of the law there, the kidnapping laws. You have to document it. The judge here isn't going to care. So you've actually got to go there, have all your documentation, and then basically go through the motion of getting denied, but you don't really care. You just document it, save all your receipts, come back to Colorado, go in, get yourself on the docket, go to court, and show all of your documentation to the Colorado judge, remind him of the federal statute, that you must be relieved of the bond, and he will exonerate the bond and relieve you right there in court. That's how it works. So when I found that out, that was actually, you got to be super careful, but it has its pluses, and that all I have to do is document it. So now I've got a situation where I do have to make sure that he is there. I got to verify that he's there, in spite of what the nurse said. I got to make sure. And then once I have that, I can go to the sheriff and tell him this is where the guy is, and then the sheriff will tell me, well, okay, we're going to go get him. You can't take him. And then you tell him you're aware of the law and all that. You don't want to break any laws, blah, blah, blah. So because it's just going to be that sort of formality, I'm going to go driving down there, and my daughter Jessica asks me if she can go with me. And, it's better than riding alone, and it's a little quality time with one of your kids and all that. And it's just going to be a formality anyway, so I took Jessica with me. So we have a good time driving down there and all that. And when we get there, I intentionally make sure I get there super early because I've already determined that there are 3 different shifts. This plant is so big that it runs 24 hours a day, and there are 3 8-hour shifts every single day. And I'm not quite sure which shift he's on, so I want to get there with the early morning shift and just scope the place out because I've never seen it. So we get there super early, and well, let's see, he went on at 3, so what would that be? Start at 7, maybe 6, because they get an hour lunch. So I think we probably got there around 4:30, 5 o'clock.
In the afternoon?
I head straight to the beef plant, and I went, oh my God, this place doesn't look like a beef plant. It looks like a prison. And I'm not exaggerating. It's surrounded by barbed wire fences. It's got, or at least not all of it's barbed wire, but the entrance ways are. You can't just hop in there. And they're 10 or 12 foot fences.
Yeah, I think, did you skipped a part where, didn't you call the sheriff?
Yeah, no, I haven't gotten to that.
Oh, okay.
No, I haven't gotten to that yet.
All right.
So I get there and I scope it out, and I go all the way around the plant and determine that, where the entrances are, and then at shift change, I'm outside where and this is wide enough that it's almost like 2 pedestrian lanes on one side with a probably 5 or 6 foot fence in between. And there's one on each side, people coming in and people leaving. In this long corridor that it's not round barbed wire like, I don't want to exaggerate it like you would be at a prison, but there is a string of it. And then all the rest is, huge, tall fences. You can't just get in around the parking lots and everything. It's so big they have to control it. So what I observed was that at shift change, there's a crowd, because there's thousands of people working there. There's a crowd coming out, and at the same time, there's a crowd going in. And using binoculars and stuff, I can see that they're showing IDs and stuff when they're going in. So they probably have employee IDs and things like that. And then there are 2 security people checking IDs and letting people in. So the next thing I've got, and it's so big and so many people, and, I saw this guy, I have his mugshot, but I saw this guy the day that I wrote the bond, which could have been probably over a year before or a year before, so I can't really remember. I couldn't pick him out of hundreds of people coming out the exit. No way. So then I wait a little bit of time, and I call the nurse, the cosigner, and I don't tell her that I'm there. I don't want him tipped off or anything like that. And I don't remember what I told her, but I told her, hey, I do have one thing I need you to do. And it's very important. I need to know what days he's working this week. She doesn't know I'm right there. What days he's working this week and what shift he works. You tell me that, I'm going to be a happy camper, and, I'm going to probably be able to get more time or some sort of bullshit because I don't want her to tip on. So I'm not sure exactly what I did, but probably something like that. Well, she finds out that, yes, she gives me the days, which includes that day, and he's working the afternoon shift, which I've determined is 3 o'clock. So I've got all this time to kill. So it's maybe I waited a little while for her. We went and ate breakfast, and then it's maybe 9 in the morning, and I gave Jessica some money and told her to go get a manicure and get her hair done and all that stuff. And I was going to go talk to the sheriff because I thought, well, I better let him know, why I'm here. And maybe I can, play it by ear. So I go to the sheriff's station, and I go in the front door, and I've got all my file and my ID and all that stuff, and I've got his mugshot and certified copies of the warrant, everything you need to make it official. Well, as luck would have it, the guy at the window that I encounter when I first walk up to the window when you walk into the lobby of the sheriff's office is the sheriff himself. Not a deputy, not somebody working there. It's the freaking sheriff himself. And which was good, but I was just surprised because that didn't usually happen like that. And so I identified myself. I told him why I was there. I showed him the stuff, and he didn't say much. He just said, well, hang on a minute. And he took the warrant and all that stuff, and he left, and he was gone for a little bit. And, it took him a while. He went back and he verified everything. So it took him a while, and he comes walking back. And I think he asked me some small talk, how long it took me to get here, and, that sort of thing. He asked me what I was driving and things like that. And then he slid all the stuff to me, and he says, well, good luck with this Texas drawl. Well, that catches me off guard because I'm not supposed to be able to take him. And I said, you mean I can get him? And also, I had told him where he was working, when he was working, that I knew that this is where he's at. Okay? And I had already told him that. So I said, you mean I can take him? And he says, yeah, I'd just soon he was out of Hale County. And now I'm all shocked. My whole plan's out the window. And I said, okay, because what's happened here, I have not been prevented by a law enforcement agency or a court. I've been given permission to do it. So now this formality of documenting it and taking it back to Colorado, that don't fly no more. Now my only choice, and I'm there, is to try to get him. And it totally caught me off guard. And I don't try to make this funny, but there are some funny things. And so I said, okay, well, you know what the meat plant looks like. Can you get me in there? To the sheriff. Can you get me in there? And he says, with a grin, well, not a shit-eating grin, but with a smile, he says, no, I'm not going to help you, but if you can get him, you can take him. I said, all right, sir, thank you, So I leave the sheriff's office, and I go sit in the car for a while, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, how the hell am I going to do this? And so, I don't know, I go get Jessica. I think I don't remember. I told her to go shopping or something. I had to think about what to do. So I thought, well, I'm going to go have a beer and think about this. Well, then I find out it's a dry county, and which means, and there's dry counties in Kansas, and several states have wet counties and dry counties. Well, Hale County is a dry county. There's no liquor. There's no bars. There's no liquor stores. Nothing. But I don't realize that, so I go to the gas station. I'm looking around. I can't find one. I've already been to Utah, so I kind of know what it's like to be in a place with no bars. And so I get gas, and the guy's getting in his car, and I said, hey, man, is there anywhere around here? I'm from Colorado. I got to kill some time. Is there anywhere a guy can go play some pool and have a beer? And he says, or where are you staying? And I said, I'm just here for now. And he says, well, see that motel over there? And I said, yeah. He said, go around to the back of the motel, and you'll see just a gray metal door there. go back there and knock on the door, and when the guy answers, tell him you're staying at the motel. And I said, okay. So I do that. I find the door, I knock on the door, a guy opens it, and there's a full-fledged bar with music and everything inside this door. And sure enough, the guy says, where are you staying? And I said, oh, right here at the motel. And he says, come on in. He gives me a card to fill out that makes me a member of this club. And I'm in, and now it's just like being in a regular bar. So a funny sideline to the story, of course, is I sit down, I'm thinking of how the heck I'm going to do this. I'm running all these ideas through my mind, and sitting close to me, almost next to me, is this big stereotypical Texan. Texas drawl, cowboy hat, everything, way bigger than me. And we start talking and all that, and just having a regular conversation, and I got to throw this part of the story in, even though it doesn't directly fit. But he says, where are you from? And I just couldn't resist. I said, me, I'm from the Big D. And he looks at me all puzzled, like down at me, leans back in his chair a little bit. He says, you're from Dallas? And I said, no, Denver. And he did look at me, and then he gets this slow grin on his face and drinks his beer, and he says, that was pretty funny. So anyway, so I think of how I'm going to do this, and I come up with the following plan. So the first thing I do is I go get Jessica, and I tell her what's up, that I'm going to have to try to get this guy. And if I can't get him, maybe I'll have tried hard enough I can get the judge to give me another extension just because I gave it a good try. So what I did was I knew when the shift change was, and I knew he'd be working. And so I waited until the crowd was way established, and I'm wearing a white button shirt with pretty nice pants on, probably Dockers or something like that. I look like a professional guy. And I park the car, I back it in as close to the exit as I can get. And I tell Jessica to sit in the driver's seat and wait for me. I don't know how long this is going to take, but just sit and wait for me. Because if I did get him, I wanted to be able to put him in the car and get the hell out of there as quick as I could. And so what I did was I pulled my shirt out, from my pants and everything, so it's hanging out instead of tucked in, untucked my shirt. And I stuffed the file with the warrant, the mugshot, and all the pertinent stuff I needed into my, my waist. And then I, pulled my shirt down so you couldn't see the file underneath my shirt. And I got in line with everybody else, and I pulled out my Colorado driver's license. And I just played stupid. They're running people through, and they've got to get to work. They're doing shift change, and I really did gamble that they would, this is so routine, and they see these people all the time, and and he was just kind of nodding to people, and most of them were pointing their ID with hardly even slowing down at all, and just going right in. So I got in line, and when I finally got to the front, like he thought I was an idiot, which was fine, I held up my Colorado driver's license. I'm not dressed like any of these guys. I'm dressed like nice, except for my shirt's untucked. And I said, where do I go to apply for a job? And the line came to a complete stop. It had been moving. And he looks at me and he says, what? And I said, yeah, a job. I just wanted to apply for a job. And he really did hesitate, kind of stuttering. And he looks and he said, like, you dumbass, was kind of the look, and, shakes his head. And he points, like, around the corner and down the hall. And he says, take this hallway down to the third one on the left or whatever it was, second or third hallway on the left, turn there and you'll see a sign that says personnel. And he looks at the other guy, the other security guy, and shakes his head like, what a dumbass. But he lets me in. He lets me in. So I go in, and now I'm with the crowd, just like cattle, ironically. I'm going down this hallway with all these guys headed this way, and they're starting to branch off. And I saw a men's room on the right, and I ducked into the men's room. I went into the stall. I tucked my shirt back in, got all my stuff ready, got my badge put on my waist, got my, my bonding license and ID and all that stuff. I had the mugshot ready, the warrant, I had everything ready. I go and make sure I look right. And I come out of the bathroom, got back in the crowd with everybody, went down the hall, and sure enough, here's a big sign sticking out from the wall that says personnel, which is right where I need to go. And so I walk into personnel, and there's nobody in there except for a girl at the counter. And I walked in, and I opened the file, and this is a common thing too. When I open it, everything is already facing her. The warrant's already there, so you don't be an idiot, dig through and say, I want to show you this, I want to show you that. You open the file, and she looks at it, and it's already pointed at her. The mugshot of the guy, the warrant, and you lay your ID down, all that, that stuff. And I said, this guy is working here, he's here right now, and I'm here to arrest him and take him back to Colorado on a warrant. And here's the warrant. And she looks at me, and her eyes are huge, and she says, well, just a minute. And she goes in the back, and pretty quick, this guy comes out, who's the manager of that department. Pretty darn fast, he comes out. Because this is like the biggest thing that's happened in personnel. And he says, what's going on? And I showed him, and I told him the same thing. And he says, boy, I don't know. And I said, no, it's all, and now check this out, Jeremy. He says, well, I don't know. And I said, hey, it's all legit. You can ask the sheriff. And he says, our sheriff? Like that. I'll never forget it. And I said, yeah, Sheriff, whatever his name was. I don't remember. I said, yeah, Sheriff so-and-so. Give him a call. And he's like, okay, can I take this? And I said, sure. So he goes into this office, and I can see him back there through this, I can see him back there. And, 3/4 glass type wall. And I see him on the phone, and I see him turn, he's looking at me, and I'm just standing there like, this is how it's going to be, And, like I've done it a million times. And so he's on the phone, he's looking, I see him nodding his head and all that. And he comes back, and now he's all kind of excited, and he says, okay, well, I'm going to need, so he's talked to the sheriff, and I'll have more on that in a second. And he says, okay, well, I'm going to need to find out what floor he's on and where he's at. And I think I said something like, well, could we maybe step into your office, because then people are kind of come. And he's like, oh, yeah. So we go back to his office, and he shuts the door. And he starts making calls, and he calls a supervisor on a walkie-talkie, and he asks if he has so-and-so there, and he says, I think so, let me check, and it's real loud, and background sound. And he says, well, I'm missing something here. He said, well, what should I do? And I said, well, what we need to do is get him up here. Maybe you could come up with a reason that he needs to come up here to personnel.
Wasn't there a part where the sheriff, like he's on the phone with the sheriff?
Yeah, that's coming.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, you've heard the story, so that's coming up. So I tell him, well, we're going to need to get him up here. So is you meet a couple guys, or maybe come up with a reason for just maybe you can come up with a reason that he needs to come to personnel, sign something or something like that. And he goes, oh yeah, I can come up with something. And so he gets on the walkie-talkie and he calls some guy, loud background and everything, and he asks if Jose is there. And he says, let me check. And then he comes back on the radio and he says, yeah, he's here. And he says, well, I need him to come up to personnel. And he says, oh, and have security bring him up. And I'm thinking, right on. So
you weren't worried that like that was gonna tip him off or something, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, I didn't think so. I really wasn't worried about that. I didn't want him to see me or anything. But I thought, he's not going to think much about going to personnel. Especially if it's like, and I didn't hear him, and if he did tell the guy what to tell him, I'm not sure. But once, I don't remember if he did, but once security's got him, I mean, they're going to do what they were told. He's not going to go nowhere. And I thought he probably wouldn't think too much of it anyway if he's going to personnel,
Mm-hmm.
And, it's been quite a while. And again, I wasn't too worried about that. And there wouldn't have been much I could do. I can't go down to the floor and get him and all that. And he said, well, this is going to take a while. And I think it took a good 15 or so. I don't remember. It took a while, though, for him to get up there. So in the meantime, we're in his office, and this guy's kind of, thinking this is really cool. This is big stuff. He probably tells this story, too. And so while we're there talking, he asked me, he says, so he's looking at the warrant and all that, or not the warrant, but the mugshot. And he says, well, how are we going to do this? See, I did forget it. He asked me, he says, what's he wanted for? And you give him the standard answer because it gets you the most cooperation. It doesn't matter what they're wanted for. You tell him he's wanted for sexual assault. And too bad for him when he gets back and has to explain that he really wasn't wanted for sexual assault. But you don't care. Your job is to get him. He's the one that took off. So you don't care. And as soon as people hear that, you get all kinds of cooperation. They instantly don't like him. So
it's the Bill Cosby rule.
Huh?
It's the Bill Cosby rule.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're kind of, I can hear you, but it's not real loud.
I said it's the Bill Cosby rule.
That's right.
No.
So, anyway, I think he's like something like, oh. Well, anyway, so we're waiting, and he asked me, so how are we going to do this? And but before I tell you how we're going to do it, while we were waiting, he said, yeah, I was a little surprised or something like that when I talked to the sheriff, and he kind of laughed, and I said, oh, and he says, yeah, I told him that you were here, and he started laughing, and he says, do you mean that son of a bitch got in there? And I said, yeah, he's in here. and he said, and I said, what did he say? And he says, well, well, let him have him. So, there's no way. He says, now that I think about it, he's had the sheriff tell him too. So they got to tip him off. And so he said, yeah, let him have him. And I guess he thought it was funny. That son of a bitch got in there. So anyhow, so I told him, well, here's what we're going to do. Your security guy will be with him. The way his office was, behind the door, if you open the door in, behind it was a solid wall. You could see in there. And so I said, so here's what I'm going to do. I'll have my handcuffs ready. And when he comes in, He's going to walk all the way in. He'll be facing you and your desk. He won't know that I'm behind the door. And I know I reassured him this will be real smooth. I don't think we're going to have any problem at all. But what we're going to do is he's going to come in, and then I'll take my hand and gently shut the door. I'll push it shut. And when he turns around to look, I'm going to be holding his mug shut. Because it's very effective. It's pretty hard to say you've got the wrong guy when the first thing he sees is a picture of himself in his mugshot. And so, the guy he was really on board with the idea. And I said, and the door will be shut, the security guy will be in there, but if he tries to get away or he does react, I'll tackle him. I'll grab his legs and I'll take him to the ground, and then, you tell the security guy to help subdue him, and we'll get the handcuffs on him. But he'll probably be so shocked that, everything will be fine, and that's what ended up happening. So when he shows up, he comes walking in, and then I recognize him, He comes walking in, and I do that. I didn't slam it or nothing. I just pushed the door gently shut. And so it shuts solid, like a door would sound. And he turns around, and he looks, and I'm holding the mugshot, and my face is right above the mugshot. And I said, you didn't think I'd really come and get you, did you? And I don't know if I tossed it on a desk or what I did, but I don't have the mugshot anymore, and I have the handcuffs out, and I say, turn around and put your hands behind your back. And he did. Put his hands behind his back. I get him cuffed. And the security guy is like, well, what's going on? And the manager is like, well, I'll fill you in. And I said, well, I could use your help here. Because I've got to get out of this place. And he said, oh, yeah, okay. Well, so I've got the guy ready. I've got all my stuff. And I put the stuff back in my pants like it was originally with my shirt out. So I've got both hands free. And now I've got the security guard. And I look at the guy, and it's a beef packing plant. And he's covered in blood. It's cow blood. But he's covered in blood. The whole front of him, shirt, pants, shoes. And then he says to the manager and to the security guard, and not so much to me, not that matters, but he said, today's payday, is there any way I could sign my check? And they turn and look at me. And I said, well, not normally, but I said, I passed a bathroom, on my way here. Do you think you could clear the bathroom? If you can clear the bathroom and, you go in there with me. And he even said not only could he do it, he got on the radio and had a different security guy go clear the bathroom. And then he told us that the bathroom was clear and told him to wait, not let anybody in. And then I take him by the arm with the security guard, and we go down that same hall and go back to that bathroom that I first went into. And now we've got him in the bathroom, and he can't get away. And not very long after that, the manager comes in, and he's got the guy's paycheck. And I thought I really did, not trying to, make myself sound nice, but he's going to be gone for a long time. Plus, he skipped out. He's probably going to get 18 months in jail. And so I thought about his wife and all that stuff. And, what good's it, it's not going to hurt to let him sign his paycheck. So he signs his paycheck and, something else. And then he wants to change his shirt. And he was so bloody. Shouldn't have let him do that. But he's so bloody, I let him change into the shirt he showed up in, I guess. But not his pants. So he's got a shirt on that the blood was so fresh that it didn't take too long. I didn't notice it till later, but the bottom of his shirt started absorbing blood from his jeans. So anyways, a bloody mess. And we're ready to go. I've got him. I got him all secure. I got him by the elbow. He's secure. And the security guys are like, well, we can walk you down there to the entrance, but that'll be all we can do. And I said, nah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And so we head right back to where I came in. And people, of course, are giving us the eye. I've got him by the elbow. Got the security guys behind me. And we get back to the guy that let me in, and you should have seen the look on his face. When I come walking out with a badge, it's a bail bonding badge, but he didn't have time to look at it. I come out with a badge, and I'm holding this guy, and I just nodded at him when I walked past him, and you should have seen a look at it on his face. And so we head out, and I'm out. We're walking down the exit corridor, the long corridor, all the way out, and then the next thing you know, we're in the parking lot. And I look around, I don't really see any problems. And, I'm still ready to tackle him if I have to, but he's handcuffed pretty good. So we start walking to the car, and the way the sun was shining, you could see right in the car, and you could see Jessica sitting there. And she saw me coming, but we get to where you can see that there's a young girl. She was 16, I believe. And she was 16, and sitting there, a young blonde 16-year-old girl sitting in the driver's seat of the car, and we get pretty close, and I intentionally stopped, pulled back on his arm so it jolted him, and I squeezed his left elbow and arm, bicep, as hard as I could. And I looked at him, and I pointed, and I said, "Do you see that girl right there?" And he see. And I said, "Right there, you see her, right?" And he says, "See." And I looked right and as mean as I could, and I said, "That's my daughter. Comprende?" And he says, "See." And I said, I mean it. You cause me any problems, or you try to do anything to my daughter, and I'll kill you. And he says, "Oh, no, see." So we go to get in the car, and I open the car, and now, I'm not prepared for this, really, but I have thought about it. So I put him behind. Jessica starts to get out, and I said, "No, you're going to have to drive." And I put him behind her, in the seat right behind her. And he's handcuffed behind his back. And Jessica's like, "Oh, I don't want him sitting behind me." And I said, "Would you rather have him behind me when he just tries to escape and I'm driving?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "So you just drive, and I'll sit in the passenger side, and I'll keep an eye on him." And Jessica's, "Okay." And I said, "Go back out this way," whatever it was, and I had spotted this hardware store. And there was a hardware store and a grocery store. And I said, "Head down here, and down there is a hardware store." And I said, "Head over there." So we get there, and we park in the handicap zone as close to the entrance as I can. And I get out, and I tell him to stay still, and you better not try to damage my car or anything like that. It's going to be way better for you if you cooperate with me than if you don't. And, the sheriff already knows about it. He doesn't know where I am or anything like that, but, if something bad happens, the sheriff already knows about it. So then I told Jessica to get out of the car, and I said, "You stand by the front fender of the car, front of the car, and you just keep an eye on it. And if he tries to get out, or he manages to get the door unlocked, or he starts kicking the seats or kicking the windows, or he starts any sort of ruckus at all, you start screaming help. You just scream help, call the police." And Jessica's like, okay. And I said, "I'll be right back." So I go into the hardware store, and I buy about 6 or 8 feet of chain, just like bicycle chain, the long rectangular loop, not real strong, but the person's not going to break it. And I get a bicycle lock, which is what I really meant to say, one of those long bicycle locks. And I buy that, and I come back out, and I open the car door where he's at, and I tell Jessica to get on the other side of the car, and people are coming in and out of the grocery store and out of the hardware store. And, you know, people are looking, but I don't care. If somebody calls the cops, it's going to be just fine because the sheriff already knows about it, right? So, anyway, I open the door, and I stand to where the door itself has him pinned, and I'm right there in the opening, and I lean down and I tell him, here's what's going to happen. You're going to stand right here and facing away from me into the V that the door's creating between the car and the door. And I'm going to be behind you, and I am going to rig up these shackles. And then I'm going to unhandcuff one cuff, and I'm going to handcuff you in the front. But if you cause me any trouble or you try to get away, you won't get away, and I'm going to handcuff you in the back, and you're going to go all the way to Fort Morgan, Colorado with the handcuffs behind your back, and you know how that's going to feel. And he just kept swearing he'd cooperate. So I reached around and I unbuckled his belt, and I took his belt off, tossed it, you know, in front somewhere, it doesn't matter. And then I proceeded to run the chain through his belt loops all the way around his jeans so that both ends came out in the front. And then I took the lock and got it ready on one end of the chain. And then I repeated what I had told him, and I undid one of the handcuffs, and I reached around, and he cooperated, and he put his hands in the front, and I snapped it in the front. So now his hands are together, you know, wrist to wrist, pointing straight out in front of him, a lot more comfortable for him. And then I had him turn around, and I took the bicycle lock and I ran it through the first length of chain reasonably tight so he couldn't move his hands more than a couple inches at the most. And I slid it over the connector part between the two handcuffs, and then through the other end of the chain, hold that tight, you know, so it's down next to his belly button, and his fists and, you know, knuckles are pointing down, so it'd be like in his crotch, and snap the lock. And I improvised and made shackles. So now he can't move, his hands are in the front, but he can't move them, and they're hooked to his pants. And I was pretty impressed. It worked. So then I set him back in there, and he gets in the back, and then I told Jessica, you're going to have to drive, and I don't remember the road, but we have to go through several counties if we go the fastest way. I'd have to look at a map to tell you exactly how I went, but we head north, and I'm still real concerned about the laws in Texas. I'm probably going to be okay because I got permission from the sheriff of Hale County. So if we get stopped by a state patrolman or something like that, we happen to be in another county, my chances are probably pretty good that nothing's going to happen to me. But nevertheless, I also happen to know that the laws in New Mexico are virtually identical to the laws in Colorado as far as bondsmen and stuff. And, you know, Texas is a big-ass state. So heading straight north was going to take a while anyway. And so I decided we got a ways north, and I looking at the map, and I decided we're going to cut over to New Mexico. So we did that. We got over to New Mexico as fast as we could. And as we're heading west towards New Mexico, he starts telling me that he has to use the bathroom, which is something they always try to tell you. And I said to him, well, man, you're going to have to hold it. But if you hold it till we get to New Mexico, when we get into New Mexico, I didn't tell him when I feel safe, but when we get into New Mexico, we'll stop and I'll let you pee. So that's what we do. When we cross into New Mexico, and we stop at probably the first place, and there was a food thing there. I think it was a Burger King. That sort of matters. And so it's been a long day and all that. And this is kind of funny, but we get to this gas station and we pull right up in front. And there's can't remember if it was a guy or a girl, but there's a clerk there. And it's already dark by now, so it's nighttime. And we get out of the car, and I open the door, and I've got my badge and my ID and all that stuff, and I'm right up by the front, and I pull out a guy in shackles, hands shackled and all that stuff with blood all over him. I didn't really think all that much about the blood until I came in and I start to tell the clerk that we're just going to be there for a few minutes while he uses the bathroom, that everything is okay. I show him my badge and all that stuff, and everything is fine. We just need to use the bathroom, and everything's cool. And I saw the clerk kind of look up and down at him, and then I realized, and I said, it's all good. So we do go into the bathroom, and he's able to unbutton his pants just fine, and he really did have to go to the bathroom. So he gets all done, and kind of funny, but he wasn't, because of the way his hands were and the shackles and everything, and they're hooked to his pants, he wasn't able to button them back up. And he turns to me like I'm going to button his pants, and I'm like, no, I'm not buttoning your pants. You're just going to have to hold them up.
Yeah, button fly?
No, just the button at the top.
Oh, I see. I was like,
yeah, however he did it. I just remember that he wanted me to button them, and I was like, no, I ain't gonna button them. I'd have you kick me in the nuts or something like that, I said, you're just gonna have to hold them. And so, anyway, so I lead him out. Didn't take very long, and the clerk is like all shocked, and I understood that. And I said, have a good evening. And I said, I really don't want him to call the cops, because then I got to deal with the New Mexico police, which will be fine because everything's legit, but it's going to slow me down. But nothing happened, and just kind of funny. So we get gas and we're on our way. And so we head north from New Mexico, and then Jessica is really not wanting to drive. And I told her, well, when we get up here, we get to Colorado, then I'll drive, but you drive a little bit farther. And so that's what ended up happening. Oh, and the food thing, we were really hungry, and I figured he was probably hungry too, so I bought him a burger too, and I actually was decent enough to hold the burger while he took the bites and chewed it. And I let him eat a burger, and I even gave him a Coke through the straw and let him drink a little bit of Coke, so the poor guy wasn't starving. Because I had told him, if you cooperate with me, I'll be cool with you. And so that was it. And then things are pretty well, nothing really exciting other than I decided I don't want to go all the way through Denver. So when we got to Pueblo, I'm pretty sure it was, I actually cut back east, so it took us way longer to get back than it would have. I cut back east so I can take 285. I think is it 285 or 235, whatever. It goes through Springfield and into the Oklahoma Panhandle. You come up through Lyman and all that, whatever roads those are, because you come up to Brush, Colorado, and you're virtually at the jail. So that's the route we went. And we got all the way back, and he never really did cause any problems at all. And I told him that I appreciated that, and that I was willing to make phone calls for him, that, let people know that he made it. If he wanted to give me some numbers, and, you cooperated, so, our deal is done, and good luck to you and all that. And he said, you know what I could really use is a cigarette. I could really use a cigarette. And I thought about it, and I thought about Jenny, and I thought about all the people I know that smoke. And so I pulled out of there, and I went just not very far away from the Morgan County Jail, and had Jessica go in and get some cigarettes. And I came out, and I went back to the parking lot of the jail, and I actually held the cigarette while he smoked 3 straight cigarettes. He smoked 3 straight, and he was very nice. He was very cool, really thanked me and all that stuff. And we go walking into the jail, and it was like, I don't know, 3 in the morning, maybe later. We were just completely worn out, but adrenaline keeps you going, And we go walking in, and the last thing is the sheriffs, who've gotten to know me by now, just could not believe that I actually got him. And I said, this is kind of the end of the story. I said, well, there's one more thing. Court's tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So I'm going to be here at 8 o'clock to get him on the docket. And I know you guys will do that automatically. And he said, yeah, but we could wait a couple days. And I said, no, I don't want you to wait a couple days. For one thing, I want to be there. I said, what you can do for me, though, is you can meet me